Hello everyone, welcome to the Net Zero Energy Building Knowledge series. As always, it's great to see you all. I hope you're keeping healthy and well. This is our 27th webinar in the NZ Knowledge series. Many of you have been tuning in regularly, but for some, this may be the first time. So let me quickly give you an introduction to what this series is all about. The Net Zero Energy Building Knowledge series is a platform for industry to share expertise and showcase projects, technology, products, and ideas that fuel the discussion on building energy efficiency and grow engagement for NZ. This initiative is supported by METRI, which is funded by USAID. METRI is an acronym for Market Integration and Transformation for Energy Efficiency. And I encourage you to visit the website metri.edsglobal.com to learn about our various activities. I'm Prachi and I'll be moderating today's session. Today's session is on post-COVID workplace environment. The COVID-19 pandemic has made us question so many aspects of our everyday life, right from how we travel, how we interact with each other, and most importantly, how we work. Health has become the foremost priority. As workplaces prepare to reopen, the big question is going to be how to ensure a safe working environment for all employees. In this webinar, we're going to look at workplace design, operational, and behavioral strategies for the post-COVID scenario. Let me introduce you to our expert speakers from the Health and Sustainability Division at Environmental Design Solutions, Ashutosh Gupta and Medha Priya. Ashutosh leads the team and has over a decade's experience in the realm of sustainable policy advocacy and environmental assessment. He has led projects based on energy efficiency transition in the built environment, sustainable urban development and planning, workplace health and well-being, and the nexus approach in energy, water, waste, and health. Medha is a health and sustainability consultant. She is an architect with a passion for translating holistic wellness strategies into the architecture and ergonomics of building design. So I welcome you both, and without further ado, let's dive into today's session. Over to you, Ashutosh.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. I hope I'm audible is it okay, Prachi?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. As Prachi has already introduced the topic to you all, today's presentation is on post-COVID workplace strategies. Before we're discussing the workplace strategies that needs to be implemented, I'll just take first few minutes to explain the global pandemic we are all in. So this all started, everyone knows it's November, December, and on 30th January 2020, WHO declared this outbreak as a public health emergency of international concern. And on 11th March 2020, it was declared as a global pandemic, and things changed then onward. As of now, 5th of May 2020, there are like approximately 3.5 million cases of COVID has been reported globally, and resulting in more than 240,000 deaths. Now, what is the characteristic of this? Is this pandemic is very important to understand. This disease has spread quickly to all corners of the world, and its capacity for explosive spread has overwhelmed even the most resilient health system. Severity: overall, 20% of the cases are severe or critical, with a crude critical clinical case fatality rate currently of over 3%, increasing in old age of course, increasing in old age groups and those with certain underlying conditions. And this pandemic has sent shocks to health and social care systems. Measures taken to control transmission have led broad and deep socioeconomic consequences. So what is this COVID-19? This is basically the name of a disease, which is coronavirus disease 2019, called as COVID-19. And the official name of the virus which is spreading this disease is SARS-CoV-2. The range of symptoms for this disease are from mild illness to acute respiratory distress. You can get it. At present, there is no vaccine or therapeutic provisions proven to treat or prevent COVID-19. Now, it can affect all ages. However, as I said, that it is more severe if it gets severe with the age. How it is transmitted? Of course, person-to-person contact. So, someone with a virus sneezes or cough on anyone, leaving respiratory droplets on skin, clothing, or someone touches someone who has a virus on their skin or clothing. That's how it's get escaped from an individual, and then the transmission happens. Individual then touch each other, even which gives virus to entry point via mouth, nose, and eyes. So there's the 3 stages. It's a escape stage where it escapes from one person. There's a transmission stage, and then it enters. Every workplace will be required to take care of this transmission, especially this transmission stage, where every workplace has to be ready to stop this transmission, especially happening from the asymptomatic individuals, to be able to increase the safe environment for every employee in the workplace. So this transmission stage becomes very critical. This COVID-19 pandemic has presented new and incredible challenges for millions of workers around the globe. In just a matter of weeks, the workforce at large has quickly and strategically navigated the sudden shift to move to remote working while maintaining this symbiotic relationship between business continuity, employee well-being. As we look ahead, organizations across the globe are grappling with how they can plan, communicate, and transition hundreds and thousands of employees to the office with new guidelines and policies to maintain the health of both employees and. So workplace will face many challenges to accommodate this new normal. This is what we want to discuss in today's webinar. What are these challenges and how we can overcome that? Now, why is it required? Of course, people need to be safe and feel safe. An employee plan to return to work. Offices need to make choices carefully and responsibly. Employee safety and well-being must be paramount to any organization for that matter. So people need to feel safe and be safe in that work environment they're going to go back. Now, why should an organization be doing it? Of course, it's a socioeconomic impact of the pandemic has been profound. Every organization should be implementing a comprehensive set of measures calibrated to their capacity and context, of course, to slow down transition of COVID-19. Ultimately, with the aim of reaching and maintaining a steady state of no transmission and restoring their daily workplace activities. I'm not going into the cost. It may, the whole transition will be a cost to a company, but of course this has to be done, to be ready post-COVID, workplace to be ready to post-COVID scenario. Okay, so what we have done is we have tried to categorize strategies into 3 parts. An easy one, which we feel, it's a quick fix solution, find and replace solutions for any workplace. Then a physical one, which is where a space requires reworking, like layout improvement, HVAC, ducting and redesigning, rerouting, creating additional barriers, maybe glass partitions or biophilic design can be integrated. That's the physical. And the third is operational or policy change that every organization has to go through. So For example, allowing not more than 50% employee to be in the workplace, doubling infrastructure setup for home and offices, break timings, office timings, transportation facilities. So that is the operational change that everyone has to go through. This is how the presentation will we've categorized, we've identified and thought of dividing this into easy, physical, and operational. Every workplace has to come up with specific strategy addressing their building needs and assessment, which will be based on building by building basis. Areas which we feel that need attention are building systems, architectural design, interiors, plumbing, housekeeping, some innovative technology that has to be introduced, nourishment, of course, policy and strategy practices, standard practices. So we're going to cover all these in the coming slides. Building systems. A building system would need an immediate attention to be post-COVID ready. That's for sure. In 2003, the SARS affected people over long distances, and there is evidence some strains of it remained suspended and infectious for 3 hours, suggesting the possibility of aerosol transmission. Although research is underway to fully uncover the role of building systems in the transition of COVID-19, actions must be taken to adhere to certain principles while designing future systems or preparing the current workplace against this transition. So what we have done is we have identified a few measures, and we have listed 4 areas in the order of priority field, that is ventilation, air filtration, relative humidity, and temperature. And so ventilation and filtration provided by heating, ventilating, air conditioning systems can reduce the airborne concentration of SARS-CoV-2 when properly applied. That's very important to understand how do we do that. However, there is still ongoing research on what role temperature and humidity play. It is still under debate. But we have to understand that even the most robust HVAC system cannot control and completely prevent dissemination of any infectious aerosols or disease transmission by droplets and aerosols. And HVAC systems impact will depend on source location, if any, if there is any asymptomatic patient or the occupant within the building, distribution of the released aerosol, of course, droplet sizes, air distribution systems, again, temperature, humidity, and filtration media. Jumping to the ventilation. So ventilation represents a primary infectious disease control strategy. Now, this ventilation can actually play an important role. In case of natural ventilation, dilution of the air will be 100%, and it is expected the removal of infectious agents will be 100%. Generally speaking, designs that achieve higher ventilation rate will reduce risk, and which will happen in natural ventilation for sure. So natural ventilation becomes an ideal case, which allows 100% outside air circulation. However, it won't be possible in many buildings, as they are designed to be centrally air conditioned. That's the challenge that most of the building will face, as they are not naturally designed to be naturally ventilated. So in case of air conditioned building, say having no or limited provision of natural ventilation, increasing outdoor air ventilation would be an ideal option. That's one way of allowing more air from outside. Now this may require disabling demand control ventilation in case if it is part of a system, and opening outdoor air dampers to 100% or less as indoor-outdoor conditions permit. That's very important to understand how are the outdoor, because of pollutants and everything. So it all depends on what are the outdoor conditions as well. Now it is advisable to run ventilation systems for longer hours. That's the recommendation that we feel that everyone has to follow. That it is better to run an air-conditioned building ventilation for longer hours, if possible, 24/7. Maybe at lower speed during unoccupied hours, but that's how it needs to be done to avoid any infection or aerosols within the space. Projects team may think of bypassing energy recovery ventilation systems as well, if that possesses a potential leak. which can contaminate the outdoor air which is coming in. So this has to be evaluated. Now, the interesting part is, we can use demand control ventilation system. It could be used, as a monitoring strategy. But if just by changing the set point of CO2 to a lower level, say 500, 600 ppm, which will enable more fresh air into the system. Again, the system has to be ready to accept that, but demand control ventilation can work as a monitoring strategy as well. Again, high-end office climate control systems will definitely appear. It used to be a feature now, but with post-COVID, it will be part of the buildings. Very new technologies will appear and will help in maintaining that, help in maintaining the systems. The quick recommendations for ventilation: supply as much air outside air as reasonably possible. That's definitely a recommendation. Change the clock times of system timers to start ventilation at normal speed at least 2 hours before the building usage time, and switch to lower speed 2 hours after the building usage time. At least this needs to be done. The third one is exhaust ventilation systems of toilets should always be kept at 24/7 running, and make sure that negative pressure is created. Now, especially to avoid the fecal oral transmission. This is a new study that has come out, and we'll cover that in the next few slides. That's on ventilation. Air filtration, the use of highly effective particle filtration in centralized air conditioning systems will definitely reduce the airborne load of infectious particles. Now, this strategy will reduce the transport of infectious agent from one zone to another when these areas share the same central system through supply of recirculation air. So where there is a supply of recirculation air, the filters will definitely play an important role. Now, what are levels of filters that is required? I mean, it's important to understand that improving central air and other HVAC filtration to MVRV 13 or higher level achievable would be the recommendation. However, it all will depend on AHU capacity, static pressure, age of system. All that will also decide what filter can be, highest level filter can be put to decide on filtration media. Now, additionally, in case of system limitations, the portable room air cleaners with HEPA or high MERV filtration with due consideration to the clean air delivery rate could become an alternative solution. If there is a limitation, then this could be a solution that, having a portable system within the space. Along with the filtration, UVGI, which is ultraviolet germicidal radiation, could be considered, particularly in high-risk spaces, such as waiting areas, receptions, common areas. They can be installed with the AHU, or they come as a standalone as well. Such installations, say, which is this UV systems or ionization units, are more relevant basically to healthcare facilities. But yes, considering the current situation, can be considered. The UV treatment could be effective, could be really effective in a building having no option but to recirculate some return air. So then UV treatment could become. However, it is, this is very important. If for 100% fresh air system, if the building is able to maintain 100% fresh air system, UV system is not effective, as outdoor air is not a contamination source. So that needs to be ensured that, if there's naturally ventilated building, or we are able to supply, the project is able to supply 100% fresh air, and there is no need of putting a UV system into the building. Again, as I said, there are many portable solutions available which can be used as and when required for small offices where there is a limitation with the return air circulation. Humidity. Now, humidity and temperature there's a lot of research going on, and there's a lot of debate going on. How do we maintain this, and what is the right approach? So HVAC systems are designed, or can be designed, to control relative humidity. Yes, of course, there are practical challenges and potential negative effects of maintaining certain RH set points, in all climate zones. For example, a high humidity in cold climate may lead to condensation, which eventually, lead to fungal or mold growth. but many immunobiologists have correlated mid-range humidity levels with improved immunity against respiratory infection. Now that this graph clearly indicates that, the graph from one of the research shows that chances of infection reduces at higher RH levels. Beyond 40, it shows that the infectivity reduces. However, it is early to say or conclude, if the same is applicable to COVID-19, as many researchers are saying otherwise as well. But yeah, that's the research that has been done on influenza or MERS COVID is very much saying that increasing the humidity beyond 40 may reduce that. How does it happen? There are three mechanisms that could potentially explain this thing, and and it can influence. So people inhale, if people inhale fewer droplets at a higher RH due to slower evaporation from large droplets, infectious aerosols emitted from a primary host shrinks rapidly to become small nuclei, and these dormant yet infectious pathogens remain suspended in the air and are capable of traveling great distances. So high humidity could be a solution, so that if there is high humidity, there is a less chance of smaller nuclei forming. Mostly it will be large droplets which will eventually settle down. So that's one way of justifying that high humidity could work. Second is, of course, breathing dry air could cause desiccation of the nasal mucus, which renders the host more susceptible to respiratory virus infections. So that's the second observation. The third one is, there's many viruses and bacteria are anhydric resistant. I mean, they can survive without water. So they survive in zero moisture and actually have increased viability in low RH conditions. So to conclude, RH between 40 and 60 would be recommended solution till the new research says otherwise. Temperature. SARS-CoV-2 is temperature resistant or not, again, is part of ongoing research. There is a specific temperature that best fits the benefit of the virus. And the researchers have shown that lower temperatures contribute to the transmission, because it is even the one it is when the vulnerability increases. So of course, the higher the temperature, the virus becomes inactive, but that higher temperature is like really high, from 37 degrees to 56 degrees, it goes up. So, however, there are not many evidence supporting that case. Case counts for COVID-19 could decline when the weather becomes warm. Again, there's many researches that has come out, especially from Italy and all that. Warm weather has not stopped the transmission, but yes, it could be said that viruses survive at higher temperatures. Survival at higher temperature is less, and they become inactive. So the suggestion that keeping temperature at as high possible can be effective management strategy, but then how far we are ready to raise the temperature is the question in a confined space. Now, keeping the adaptive thermal comfort model in mind, it is suggested that unless absolutely required, all indoor air conditioning systems be operated at or above 25 degrees Celsius, or even if possible more than that. So higher temperature would be better. Again, thermal comfort will be compromised, but that's how it is. So some research findings are saying that COVID-19 is quite resistant to environmental change and are susceptible only for a very high relative humidity, which is above 80, and a temperature of 30. So it's very much debatable, but these are the strategies that we are recommending, at least for now. So in next few slides, I'll request Medha, will take you through some of the critical issues that need to be addressed with respect to architectural and ergonomics of building design. Over to you, Medha.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Good afternoon.
Let me just give you the
I hope you all are keeping safe. I will be speaking on the design aspect of post-COVID workplace strategies.
Go ahead, Medha. I think now you can control the slides.
Thank you. Now, in the field of architecture, we all have heard the statement that form follows function. But for most of history, form has followed the fear of infection. And this is not the first time we as humans are up against the forces of nature. From cholera to HIV, tuberculosis to now COVID-19, diseases have and will continue to shape architectural principles. In the past, cities and buildings have been redesigned based on the understanding of diseases. Let's see how workplaces, one of the most acutely affected spaces, are going to change. While options like teleworking are being extensively explored at the moment, in India and abroad, phase-wise return to the work environment is already underway. As this happens, office floor plans need reorganization, keeping the minimum distance of 6 feet or 2 meters between people in all areas. To achieve this, the workplaces will require de-densification. Simply put, this means that many companies, which used to allot 70 to 80 square feet per person, can now be expected to allocate space of about 125 square feet per employee. With fixed office areas and now reduced density, headcount will see a drastic reduction. To combat this, ancillary spaces such as meeting rooms, conference rooms will be transformed into workspaces that follow distancing protocols. Although this may be an interim plan right now, such multi-occupant spaces may become expendable in the future of healthy workplace design. Next. Could you please move to the next slide?
Yeah, I've done it. Just there's a delay. Can you see the next slide?
Yes, I can. Another way to ensure healthy workplaces is to integrate nature into design. This approach is called biophilic design, and it is a concept that promotes increasing occupant connectivity to the natural environment, thus strengthening the human-nature connection. These natural elements may include indoor greenery, atriums, podiums, outdoor meeting spaces. These spaces will not only provide for fresh air circulation, but also allow people to practice social distancing more effectively and promote mental well-being, which is a key word these days. Now, coming to the topic of materials. Materials are a very important consideration in workplace design. An antimicrobial surface is one that inhibits the growth of microorganisms that may be infection carriers such as bacteria, fungi, or viruses. Now, coming to these three categories, antibacterial materials. These are the materials that combat the growth of bacterial materials on a surface by preventing the initial addition of cells to the surface. Smooth, non-porous surfaces such as ceramics and stone have good antibacterial properties. Viruses such as COVID-19 are transmitted when a person touches respiratory droplets settled on an object or surface. Antiviral spaces could play the biggest role in cutting down the spread of a virus. In this regard, copper and its alloys are known to have antiviral effects. After incubation for 1 hour on copper, influenza virus particles were reduced by 75%. And after 6 hours, particles were reduced by 99.99%, making them an excellent choice over stainless steel, which does not have any antiviral properties. In case of air conditioning systems, the use of antifungal materials such as copper can be seen to prevent the dispersion of fungal spores through HVAC systems. Now, how do we achieve these antimicrobial surfaces in the workplace? So some of the strategies may include, the first one is, like I have spoken, materials. So copper and copper alloys have the natural ability to kill harmful microbes. The United States Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, has approved the registration of 355 copper alloys as antimicrobial materials. The second is surface. So smoother finishes are preferred over rough pitted surfaces. Additives such as silver can be formulated into concentrated powders or liquid suspensions that can be integrated during the manufacturing process of a material. Fabrics can be made from a variety of different textiles by embedding fibers that prevent microbial propagation. Now, these fabrics are already in use in healthcare services, but now, given the spread of this infection, they may be explored further for spaces such as waiting rooms, lounges that are multi-occupant spaces in the working environment. And the last is coatings. Now, for existing office spaces that already have all the furniture in place, antimicrobial coatings can be used. These are typically applied or sprayed on the different surfaces of the office. Next.
Yeah, there's a delay, so I've already done it.
It's okay. Thank you.
Can you see this?
Yes, I can see it. With multi-occupant spaces losing popularity, single-user spaces will be seen more in the offices. For example, instead of the 8 to 10-seater meeting rooms, video conferencing enclaves that allow distant meetings will be a more practical solution. Also, isolated workplaces such as pod workstation or enclosed cubicles will gain popularity. Consideration that could be taken in these kind of spaces is that they can be provided with special ventilation or negative air pressure. Now, talking about open offices are not faring very well when it comes to infection exposure. Such spaces can transition into a closed office space by creating flexible cubicles in the open office area, which will also help to reduce density while limiting transmission. Circulation paths and systems. The standard corridor widths will see an increase in the post-COVID workplace. In existing offices, where pathways can be cleared of obstructions such as furniture, wider corridors can be provided. In case of narrower circulation paths, one-way traffic can be applied. This will not only permit social distancing in the thoroughways, but also limit face-to-face confrontation amongst the employees. And the way how these messages can be given to the employees is using signage arrows, posters, and displays. These displays can also be used to promote the use of staircases so that the workload on the elevator systems is also reduced. Now, changes begin small, and a good place to start redesigning and reevaluating is doors and windows. A healthy, hygienic workplace inhibits transmission by reducing the requirement of touch. Therefore, touchless doors and windows are gaining tremendous popularity. This can include elbow-operated handles, foot-operated pedals, and even gesture control systems and voice control systems. So coming to interior design and ergonomics. Space planning, circulation, and programming will see new light in the post-pandemic workplace. With a renewed focus on health and life safety, interior design strategies will consider a new order of ergonomics and definitions for social interaction, social spaces, and social barriers. As we step out with this sense of awareness, our design must support ways of working, segregating, and congregating. Workstations. The first and foremost thing that can be applied to workplaces, which is a very easy strategy, is to increase the spacing between the different workstations. Clusters will have to separate to meet the 6 feet or 2 meter social distancing, and this can be achieved by moving around furniture or designating seating areas and eliminating the others that do not follow the prescribed distance protocol. The orientation can also be worked around with so as to avoid two employees facing each other while working. This can be done by turning workstations to 90 degrees and prevent that from happening. Partitions and modern cubicles make it easier for people to stay relatively isolated in a crowded or workroom. Although crowded is not the word we are looking for, but still. Some strategies to follow in designing partitions may include using movable screens that can be dismantled at one location and installed at another, or providing partitions that have a height adjustment flexibility, or adding space divisions in the form of green walls, which also add a biophilic element to the interior spaces. Coming to furniture. Now, the first and foremost thing that can be done to multi-cluster furnitures is to break them into single-user furnitures. In waiting areas, partition and cubicles can be used to separate a larger room into several smaller areas using these partitions. What this means is that multiple people can safely wait while keeping their distance, and their orientations can also be adjusted to avoid confrontation. In cafeterias, which is another high density zone of a workplace, a single seating can be broken down into multiple smaller seatings, and different work times can be used to avoid the large congregation of people. Visual signals. To effectively and regularly communicate the importance of distancing and hygiene, visual cues can be placed at different locations of the workplace. Office carpets, for example, can be designed to make people aware of their distances from one another. A good example of this is the 6 feet office at Amsterdam, ideated by Cushman and Wakefield. I would suggest all of you to take a look at it. Cafeterias, lounges, drinking water areas, etc., should have posters reminding people to avoid these gatherings, to maintain social distances while queuing for food, and also for staying healthy and fit. Now, directional arrows can be used to demonstrate where one-way traffic has been employed. This can be communicated through floor arrows and signages. Tape and other visual cues can also be taken into consideration. The last thing is sanitization stops. A visual station equipped with sanitization products such as hand sanitizers and disinfectant sprays can help to remind people to practice hygiene and also provide an easy access to cleaning supplies. The next phase that we are going to talk about in terms of design is bathroom design. In the light of the global pandemic that we are currently facing, the fundamental flaws in the design of restrooms have risen that risk the spreading of infections. There is an urgent need to improve hygiene in this space by minimizing the amount of exposure to potentially infected surfaces. Post-COVID, the importance and applicability of infection control will be as high as fire safety. Existing and new touchless solutions for every stage of using a restroom will gain popularity. Many of us have used washrooms at the airport. An interesting architecture intervention that we all have seen is the doorless washroom entrance that uses walls to block and provide privacy. This can be applied at workplaces as well, and it already is. It just has to gain popularity. For other door spaces such as cubicles, door handles can be replaced with foot pedals. Although washing of hands is a hygienic practice, the current bathroom design includes touching several surfaces after that could transmit infection. The post-COVID workplace will need to heavily employ sensor-based technology in the form of touchless soap dispensers, taps, and mixers. Many interventions that require intent right from the design stage will not be applicable in workspaces that are already functioning and will be functioning once this pandemic subsides. However, retrofitting options such as these are not only quick and easy to implement, but also go a long way in promoting essential hygiene. Next slide.
Yeah, I'm just done it. I'm just waiting. There's some delay. Can you see the next slide?
Yeah, now I can. Thank you. So no-touch design for hand towel dispensers also helps to eliminate a contact point for spreading germs and bacteria while minimizing waste and consumption. Another way to promote restroom hygiene is by integrating flushing systems in toilets with motion sensors or voice activators to terminate contact. With 60% of infected patients showing that virus can be carried in feces too, it makes it very essential to have a system for closing of the lids after usage. This process can be automated with gesture or voice control technology. What we have seen so far is how design can be integrated with intention and technology to promote health and hygiene in the workspace. For design to function and enable smooth workflow, it is essential to understand the strategies and importance of housekeeping and cleanliness as well. Over to you, Ashutosh.
Thank you, Meda. Thank you so much. So yeah, a lot is covered on interior and architecture design. Moving to the housekeeping and cleaning. So there's many areas. I mean, that needs attention, and housekeeping is in one such area. With cleanliness being top of mind for individuals returning to work, organization will be required to plan, communicate, and enforce cleaning regimes to both support service staff and employees as well. Organization will be required or should establish protocols to educate employees or personal hygiene by communicating via emails, posters, WhatsApp groups, any other media, as many ways possible. This needs to be communicated. The personal hygiene that the individual has to follow within a space, it can be home or office for that matter. For example, encouraging to wash hands at least for 20 seconds is what everyone is saying. That has to be conveyed by n number of times via emails, posters, and also it's very important to send out messages which should be discouraging a myth that is there. For example, the water temperature has no role in washing hands, so you can use cold water or hot water to wash your hand. So that there can be other strategy to to explain that all the myths that are going on and discouraging people to just follow those. Secondly, the provide and promote use of hand sanitizers in case as and when you can't wash your hands, then this should be promoted, ensuring that it contains at least 60% of alcohol. That's the standard requirement. Now, company has to define the usage protocol again, ensuring that individuals cover all parts of their hand, rub hands together for at least 20-30 seconds until hands feel dry. So all these protocols of using hand sanitizers or washing hands has to be defined, communicated in n number of ways to employees and to all the service staff. Every organization will be required to establish professional cleaning, that's for sure, and sanitizing protocol. They can follow WHO protocols or national standards established for post-COVID workplace scenarios. What is important is to follow the right cleaning practices and select the right cleaning material and ingredients. So importance should be given to the sequence of cleaning steps. That's very important. The protocol has to be defined with the sequence of cleaning steps, use of personal protective equipment, and proper disposal of those PPEs. That's very, very important that those PPEs are disposed in a proper way. This is major area got to be given special attention, as may lead to contamination again. I mean, this has to be given the special attention for housekeeping and all, and it is a major risk. Jumping on to the innovative technology, this pandemic again has shifted the perspective of technology from touch to new avenues such as sensor-based systems, automation of processes based on sensors, voice control. All that can be explored now, and take advantage of it. For example, a project should be ready to make a shift from biometric system to touchless technology. Maybe a face recognition system, scanning, touchless fingerprint scanning, and all that could be part of the system. Temperature guns and thermal cameras would become the first line of defense for some time. So this, of course, till the infection levels or cases subsequently reduces, this is going to first line of defense. People entering the building will be checked for the temperature and using temperature guns or thermal cameras. Further to touchless technology, real-time monitoring of the workplace should be encouraged. That's the and it should be implemented. Features like monitoring social distancing, having crowd indicators, controlling IAQ monitoring, which can be integrated with demand control ventilation as well. Safe and smart cleaning monitoring systems, for the housekeeping. All these options could be explored. Real-time monitoring may give employees peace of mind when returning to the office, and build a confidence towards the local environment. So this is an exercise that an every employee can do to build more confidence that the place is more secure. Again, there can be any technology. This is, a gesture control or sensor-based buttons, in lifts to avoid any touch. This part, nourishment and fitness, and we feel it should be given quite a good importance, as it is in a good, because a good immune system is the first line of defense against all kind of diseases. Buildings should provide nutritious eating opportunities as well as mental and physical fitness opportunities to their employees to foster health. To building immunity is one thing to avoid that infection that is around. Providing fresh fruits and vegetables to employees could be a good option. As majority of employees will definitely get their food from home initial days, to avoid any contamination. And yes, they should be encouraged till food courts and cafeterias are open or ready to serve food. So providing food and vegetables can be a good option. Of course, encouraging drinking water. This should be promoted. To keep everyone hydrated. All of us know that it helps build more immunity if you're hydrated. Whenever possible, employees should encourage people to dine outside, create more such spaces in the building if possible. Give access to terraces and landscape areas. This will avoid overcrowding in the dining cafeterias. Outside areas is anyways better than the indoors to reduce infection. So encouraging people to eat outside would be a good option. Of course, it depends on the availability of the area, but if there is, then it should be definitely encouraged. Terraces and this is interesting. Kitchen gardens. Of course, if you have a space, why not have a kitchen garden? Employee can spend more time outside, do some activity which can be a stress buster for them. If there is excess production, they can now definitely take home and avoid going to market to buy vegetables. This is very interesting and the very important observation that most of the offices, large offices, will have fitness centers, indoor fitness centers, and these fitness centers where individual breathe maximum and has maximum high touch surface count. So, frankly speaking, this should be avoided. Going to these places should definitely be avoided for some time. Alternative is going out of promoting outdoor fitness. It would be always advisable to look out for outdoor fitness options. Gym place, indoor gyms could be converted into yoga or meditation places. It could help employee manage stress and ensure longevity. So using gym as a meditation and yoga places could be an option, and of course outdoor fitness should be promoted. Outdoor fitness will also increase your vitamin D intake, which increases your immunity. Last, policies and standard practices. Now this is going to be a tedious task for every company to create new policies, new standards. Every workplace will be required to come up with employee-centric internal external policies. The way we work and live has just flipped. There is a necessity to reevaluate everything, including social practices and others such as remote offices, work from home, free addresses, flexible lease terms, and etc. So the standard practices such as work from office, co-working spaces will require a fresh perspective. New policies will be developed. Every workplace will be required to reevaluate social policies related to sick leave, family support, community immunity, or health promotion in the post-pandemic workplace here. Now, what we feel is it's important to just not restrict these policies to person entering a building. It should start from the transportation as well. People traveling from hot zones, which has more infections, may end up carrying that same infection in the building. So, it should be if an employer can map people who are going to enter the building, if they have that access, then they can see that who are all traveling from what kind of a mode of transport are they using in case the public transport is available in future. If they're using the personal or carpooling. So all that, so it should not start from entering a building, but it should start from the transportation. Of course, then it comes to the entering of a building, what kind of circulation that is required, using one-sided corridor, single flow on a corridor, using lift for, one lift for just going up, another for going down, just flowing, creating that pattern, one-way pattern. Personal hygiene inside the office again. So transportation, entering a building, circulation, then comes the personal hygiene. Of course, it has to be taught and conveyed. Then the last bit, the exit plan. How you exit is also very important. So that will also become very important. So where if you enter from, there has to be one entrance where you enter, and there can be another entrance where you exit a building. So all that has to be worked out for multiple buildings by multiple owners in those buildings. Again, these are some of the strategies that can help remote working, work from home. Again, free address. Again, the thing is should be encouraged and should become a acceptable workplace norm. Of course, the problem is the free address workplace will have to ensure there is no cross contamination between different occupants of the same work desk. So that's something the free address has to ensure. Just conclude by saying that companies that try to return to the way things were before COVID-19 will probably struggle. They need to reinvent because volatility is inevitable, and the workplace need to be ready to rapidly respond to the next. Thank you. Prachi, over to you.
Thanks, Ashutosh and Medha. I think that was a very comprehensive picture of the way ahead for safe workplaces. I especially liked how you suggested simple strategies like simply modifying interior layouts that can go a long way in preventing transmission. And then, of course, in the longer term, you could look at system upgrades and installing controls and so on. In fact, I wanted to share an update that's relevant here. We at Maitri are working on a white paper on retrofit for healthy and energy efficient buildings. And this will look at how we can scale up these retrofits so that people can resume work safely. So that was the update. Without further ado, let's dive into the questions. There are a lot of questions pouring in. So the first question is there a risk of outdoor air contamination too?
No. Outdoor is the most safest area. That's it's the best place to be. It's every research has shown that you're outside. It's a of course you need to have that distance of 1.5 meters from an individual in case that person has an infection. But it's outdoor is the safest area. That's there's no doubt.
Right. So in that case, there's no, ventilation. Natural ventilation is definitely a safe option to go ahead with in that case.
Best option. Yeah, that's the best option.
Right. So a couple of questions on filters. This question is about, can ionizing filters be used?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, ionizing filters can be used. I mean, if they have a capacity to, control the infection, then the particle size of COVID is approximately 0.12 micron. So usually the filters which are used in hospitals, MVRV 16, are able to remove those particulate matter. So if ionizing filters have that capacity to remove particulate matter, they can be used definitely.
Right. And another thing is you mentioned the UVGI filter. So what would be a right positioning for it, in the duct or the AHU coil?
See, it would be good to place it in the HU, at the HU coil. Of course, as I said that if there's a recirculation, there's other option is placing it in the return air duct as well, so that all the return air which is going back can be treated there, and the supply air which is a mix of return and a fresh air, then you can just avoid putting UV treatment at the HU level. But at both places, it is the costing and everything and the possibility of putting it has to be worked out. But it is better to avoid it if you can have a 100% octave air. But yes, it can put at both the places, at the return air as well and at the HU level as well.
Right. And this next question is more like a general question, but it is that in a city like Mumbai, where the relative humidity is quite high, the transmission has still been observed to be quite high. So could there be any reason for this?
Honestly, I can't comment on that. There's many theories. Transmission is going on many places with many climatic conditions. I don't have a it's very difficult to comment that why is it that it's something that an expert can answer, who has more knowledge on how viruses are reacting to this. But yes, that's what I said, that temperature and humidity is still being debated, that do they have any effect on transmission or not. That's the reason that I've mentioned it very explicitly, that it's still being debated.
Right. And here's one which says, would you say green buildings that are, say, well certified, are they inherently better poised to prevent virus spread? What do you think?
Of course, they will have an advantage. If they have already taken care of the filtration media, they have gone through the testing process. Any whether well or IGBC wellness or any other rating system requires exhaustive testing with respect to air and water. So they are better prepared to know what is going on in the building, so they can prepare themselves for this pandemic. And they have, I think, it's more of a policies. They may be ready with those policies of at least for clean housekeeping or using the right ingredients in the material which are not harmful to the individual for housekeeping. So they will have an edge, of course. The buildings which are well or IGBC certified, wellness certified, will definitely have an edge than the conventional building.
Right. Yeah. Well put. The next question is: are there any guidelines for COVID control for public spaces like metro stations?
See, I think many of the governments are coming up. State and central government are coming up with a lot of guidelines, and WHO has also come up with many guidelines. But specifically for public transport, I am not sure. But I'm expecting that. I think ASHRAE or ISHRAE is coming out with some guidelines on public transport. I need to check. I'm not sure of it specifically for public transport, as any guidelines have come out or not right now. But for buildings, definitely there's some guidelines which are out in public domain.
Right. And also here's a question about the energy consumption. How the energy consumption through increased ventilation and filtration is likely to go up. So are there any standards or guidelines being issued by any organization yet? Is there?
Yeah, so I think current situation, everyone has to be prepared to, to be ready to pay more for the electricity bills. It's going to go up for some time. The only advantage is, if you run a building at a higher temperature, then you can at least, running a building at 25, 26, 27 degrees will definitely save some, as the delta T is less. But yeah, for this situation, it is expected that the energy bills will definitely go up. Because you're putting a lot of outside air into the system, or you expected to put a lot of air into the system.
It's like a short-term cost, I guess.
Yeah, it will also depend on the climate. I know Bangalore, buildings in Bangalore will have more advantage, maybe because outside air is not that, the temperature is not that high, and free cooling could be a good option. They push 100% outside air, which is at a right temperature or needs minimal cooling. So yeah, but this is the situation is going to be for some time.
Right, and I think this question is for Medha. So the question is, you mentioned an example of buildings where carpet design was used to provide visual cues. So can you elaborate on that and maybe walk us through the example?
Yes, so basically this visual cues are a very important way of communicating the message of social distancing to people. So carpet design, there is this example in Amsterdam where carpets have these big circles of a diameter of 2 meters around each workplaces, so that even while people are going and talking to their colleagues in the different areas of the office, they are continuously reminded of keeping that acceptable social distance between them. So like I said, I've also mentioned the source of this particular image, and whosoever has asked this question can go and look up at other pictures of this project. It's a very interesting project, and we will see more of such design interventions in the coming future.
Right. Thanks, Medha.
You're welcome.
So let's just take a couple of questions more, because I think we are nearing this time. So is it safe to use pedestal fans? In the case of a building which has 20-member occupancy, would it be safe to use a pedestal fan? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, again, as I said, that it's all about outside air that is coming into the space. It's more important that having a outside air inside the space is more important. Pedestal fan, what it will do is it will recirculate the same air which is inside the space. So I don't think it will make a difference, honestly.
Right.
To have a pedestal fan next to you. The important thing is to have the right quality of air in the space that you are in. That's more important.
Right. So I think this can be the last question we take up. I guess this could be something on the lines for recommendations. It's hard to give a proper answer to a question about the cost. So this question is, how do we make the clients understand this, as there's a cost attached to this? Will these be eventually formed as standards and made mandatory in offices? Like, let's just share our thoughts on this, because there's no definitive answer for sure.
As I've told you that of course, I think for initial weeks and for initial months, I would say this is the situation that we're discussing. But in the long term, I think there's definitely possible to optimize the cost, build a healthy building which is of course more energy efficient, and I hope very soon, as you mentioned, we'll come out with this white paper which will under MAT3 program, which will cover these things, because long-term basis, of course, every building has to be healthy, energy efficient, and come in a budget. So yeah, so there's no definitive answer to this, but yeah, for initially, I think every employer will not be hesitant, I would say, in the current situation. They will definitely implement these strategies, but yes, long term there has to be a solution which is more cost effective and doable to everyone, basically.
That's right. So there are many questions coming in, and some are very specific ones. So we'll get you in touch with the speakers. So you'll receive more specific answers maybe over mail.
Of course.
Okay. So yes, we've come to the end of today's session. Just a few announcements to make. The next webinar in the series is scheduled for the 22nd of May. This is going to look at accessible and affordable greenhousing. Mr. Monu Ratra, he is the director and the CEO at IIFL Home Finance. He will be our expert speaker. Mr. Ratra spearheads initiatives to promote sustainability in the affordable housing sector, and this webinar is definitely going to throw up a lot of interesting insights for architects, consultants, and even developers. So do tune in. Next, our NZEM newsletter will be out soon. It will be full of the latest updates and insights about what's happening around the world and the world of NZEBs. So please subscribe to it. You can also view our previous webinars on the NZEB in India YouTube channel. There's a wealth of information out there on design, tech, policy, and skills for NZEB. So do check it out. And if you haven't already, do subscribe to the NZEB portal. The link's displayed here. This is your one-stop platform for everything NZEB. You'll find case studies, helpful tools, and resources for your projects, and a lot more. And that brings us to the end of the session. I hope you got some great insights today. I definitely did. Do share your feedback with us. A recording of this video will be uploaded for everyone to see on our YouTube channel very soon. Thanks, everyone, and have a great weekend ahead.